Hello everybody and welcome to today's Your Overseas Home webinar. Today we will be explaining the new rules for travelling to Spain that have come into effect since Brexit, and in particular we will be covering and explaining the 90 days in 180 days rules and what options you have should you want to spend longer in Spain. My name's Hannah Armstrong and I'm the host of the Your Overseas webinars, and I will be taking you through the session today. As many of you may know, our business has been assisting buyers with their property purchases and relocation for over 10 years now. We aim to help you avoid any pitfalls in the process, save money, and crucially, make this exciting step in your life as enjoyable as possible. With the travel restrictions lifting and the COVID situation improving, we have seen a real surge in demand from our customers looking to make that purchase overseas, and we're delighted to have you all with us today to join you on that journey. Now, with me today to share their expertise on this topic are the fantastic team from JLCA Lawyers. This morning, we will hear from Emma, who's a paralegal in the team. And from the UK originally, Emma has first-hand experience of the expat lifestyle in Spain. With Emma today in the Alicante office, we have Carla, who's a senior lawyer who is well-versed in visas and immigration and can also specialise in inheritance matters and conveyancing in Spain. We also have Lorena with us this morning, who's a Spanish lawyer and head of JLCA's extrajudicial department. That was a lot for me to say on a Saturday morning. We'll also hear from Christina, who's based in the London office and has over 6 years of experience specifically working with clients on visas and immigration matters. And lastly, we have Javier with us today, who's the UK manager of JLCA Group. Fluent in both English and Spanish, Javier is really well placed to help our UK-based clients. So thank you all for joining us this morning. Now, throughout today's discussion, we aim to answer as many of your burning questions as possible. For those of you who are listening in with us live today, do feel free to ask these questions using the right-hand side of your screen. Just type those in and we will get as many of those answered as we can for you. We estimate will be around about 45 to 50 minutes for today's session. So without further ado, I will hand over to the team, and they're going to start by giving us a little bit of background information into their business and how they can help you. So over to you guys.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us this morning and for taking time out of your Saturday to listen to us. I'll give you a little bit of background on our firm, JLCA Lawyers. We are a general practice firm servicing private clients. We've been in existence for over 20 years, and we're about 40 strong with a mixture of paralegals, lawyers, and administration staff. We deal mainly with property matters and family matters, which is a strong forte within our team. Whether it's buying and selling property, management issues, and we do a lot of dispute resolution as well. So claims against landlords, developers, and any sort of disputes that any property owner may have with a property. We also deal with immigration. That's one of our strong team that we have within the firm, members of which are here with us today, and we'll be tackling for you today any questions you may have related to traveling to Spain, whether it's just on a short trip, short holiday, or whether you're planning to stay long term and apply for a visa.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Javier. What a wonderful introduction to the business. So as we've discussed, the key kind of focus of today's session is to think about these new rules that have come into effect post-Brexit. We have a mixture of clients joining us today, some who are looking at more of a holiday home purchase and will be spending a little bit of time every year in their new house in Spain, and customers who are looking for a more permanent relocation. So starting to think about that sort of from a holiday point of view, can you just explain to us a little bit about what visas customers might need for a holiday? Will they need now to have a Schengen visa or anything like that?
Well, basically, I appreciate there's a lot of confusion over this at the moment. You do not need a visa to visit Spain at all. If you're just coming on a holiday or a short stay, then there is no visa requirement at all. So I don't know why there's been an awful lot of confusion with regards to Schengen in this respect. but the visa aspect is only attached to the longer stays, whether you're coming here to live permanently, to work, to study. That's when you actually have to look at the visa side of things.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And in terms of the holiday home then, so customers traditionally have been able to come and go from their holiday properties in Spain and elsewhere in Europe, you know, as they wish. Now with this 90-day and 180-day rule, does that apply to people who own property in Spain? And will they need to be mindful of that if they own a holiday home?
Yes, they do. Basically, this is going to apply to everybody coming across to Spain. You are allowed 90 days in every 180-day period. The important thing to understand about that is when you first arrive in Spain, that is the point where the clock starts on your 180 days. So, for example, if you were to arrive in Spain on the 1st of January 2021, you would have 90 days that you can use as you wish. Doesn't matter when, if you do it all in one block, if you do it in several blocks, but by the 29th of June, you cannot exceed 90 days because that's the 180-day period. Once you get to that 180-day period, you would have to, if you're in Spain, leave Spain, but then you can come back the following day, which would then mean your second 180 days starts. So the majority of the time, this isn't going to affect people that just like to come out to the holiday home a few times a year. It's more if you spend large amounts of time, in which case then you need to be mindful. And it is very, very important that you do keep an eye on where you are within this, because if you do go over that, then you know the consequences are quite strong in that you can't return. You know, if you were actually found to be over that, then you would face an expulsion order. You'd have to leave Spain and you wouldn't be able to return back for 5 years. So it's really important to keep a good eye on it, but it's not difficult to do. We've actually got a website linked to a calculator where you can put all of the days in, and it calculates it for you, so you can keep track very easily. But it's very important for people, and this is something that happened to me very recently because my first trip in and out of Spain. The big difference now is that you will get a stamp in your passport, so you can keep track and you will always have those stamps so you can see where you are as well.
I suppose it is worth noting as well that those 90 days can be spent not just in Spain, but in any Schengen territory. So if you do travel, say, to France or Germany or any other sort of country in the Schengen, you are spending your 90 days as well. So they don't exclusively apply to each country.
Brilliant. Thank you for that advice there. That's very, very helpful. So for the customers then who do want to stay longer and they're looking at a little bit more permanent residency, perhaps they're retiring to Spain, something like that, what is the process for them? So they would need to obtain some sort of visa or permit to do that. Can you talk us through that process for customers who do want to have a more permanent stay in Spain?
Yes, sure. I mean, if they would like to stay more than 90 days in Spain, they should apply for a long-term visa. Could be maybe the non-lucrative visa, work permit visa, whatever. I mean, which one is preferring the client. But they should apply in UK, I mean, in the resident area. And once they have obtained the visa, they could renew all that visas in Spain. So if they would like to be more than 80 days, they should apply for a long-term visa. Is the only way to do it.
Thank you, Christina. And you mentioned there are a couple of different types of visas. Can you just maybe explain the most common ones that your customers and clients are using?
Yes, or at this time, the most popular is the non-lucrative visa. Is the visa that allows you to be resident in Spain, but don't allow you to work in Spain. So normally we proceed with this kind of visa for retirement or for the people that would like to work remotely from Spain, because they could not have any work from Spain, but they obviously could reside and everything there. The other one is the work permit visa, but it should be the company who has to apply for them. But yes, at this moment, the most popular will be the non-lucrative one.
Great, thank you so much, Christina. And just to go back a little bit, sorry, to the holiday questions we were addressing earlier. Some of the customers listening today have asked about what happens if they have dual citizenship. So we have a number of customers who've mentioned that they also have an Irish passport, so technically still part of the EU. If they travelled on their Irish passport, does the 90 days in 180 days apply to them?
I mean, as they are European citizens, all the European rules, they apply to them. So they could be more than 90 days if they have any EU citizenship.
Brilliant, thank you. That's very, very helpful. So we get a lot of questions about the application process, and you mentioned obviously the non-lucrative visa. A number of our customers listening are retirees, so they are looking to retire to Spain. They're not looking to work when they get there, so they would be looking for that non-lucrative visa. Can someone talk us through the process, the application process for that? So where do you apply for that? What do you need in order to apply for that? I think that would be really helpful for the listeners today.
I mean, they have to prepare a really long list of documentation. If they would like more information, I could provide them by email. It's not a problem. But essentially, they will have to apply for ACRO certificate and other documents. We will coordinate the legalization, the translation, the documentation, and then they have to submit everything in the Spanish consulate in London, Manchester, or Edinburgh. And then once they have obtain the visa, we will coordinate the registration in the Spanish Council to provide them with the TA cards. I mean, it's an easy process, but all the collection of the documentation normally is a bit confusing for the clients.
Thank you. So they've applied in the UK in one of the consulates there that you just mentioned. Can they then, once they're in Spain, can they then renew visas in Spain, or would they be having to come back annually to the UK?
No, the first application is in UK, but they should renew all the visas in Spain. So the first one is in UK, and then all the processes in Spain. So it's not a problem for them.
Brilliant, thank you. Once they have the long stay visa, can they use that then to go to other countries? So if they wanted to spend more than 90 days in 180 days, say in France, can the fact they have a visa for Spain, does that count to go to other countries?
We're not sure how the Schengen rules would apply there. We would have to look into that for you and come back, unless Lorena or Carla have any insight into this.
We were just talking between ourselves about this at the moment. In principle, we do believe it is possible to do. What we're just doing is we're going to double check on that. So if anybody specifically has that question, if they can, following this webinar, drop us a line, and then we'll send out a document to explain exactly what the rules are with respect to that.
Brilliant. Thank you. That's very helpful. So still thinking about the application process, and a number of questions have come in from the audience today. What is the cost of getting one of the non-lucrative visas?
The non-lucrative visa fee is 520, I think, but they should pay for the ACRO certificate, the legalization, and the translation. So maybe the whole process is around 900, or maybe less.
That's great. Thank you very much. That's very helpful. Now, we often get asked questions about, and you mentioned being able to provide sort of information about what people need for that application. But the two key things that I know that everybody really wants to understand is what is the position on healthcare? Do people need private health insurance to apply? And also, is there a minimum amount of money in their bank account that they need?
Is this for someone just traveling to Spain or on a visa side of things?
Sorry, this is for one of the non-lucrative visas.
For the non-lucrative visa. Christina?
Yes, I mean, I could prepare the list of all the documentation that they need. They will find also in the consulate web page, but they must apply for a private insurance policy to apply for the non-lucrative visa, and then they should show all the funds in their accounts. Normally, it is around 30,000 per person. I don't know. Maybe Lorena could confirm the full amount, but it is around that amount.
Well, basically, what you're looking at depends on who's applying, how many people are going to be involved. For a single person, for example, it's based on 400% of IPREM, which is currently at 564.90. That was set at the start of the year. So if you had one person and you multiply that across to the whole year, you'd be looking at just over 27,000 euros for a single person. Then, for example, if it was someone and their spouse, then the spouse would have a lower amount to pay. It's worked out as 100% of the IPREM value. So that would work out over the year just under 7,000. So you're talking about then if a couple would be around 35,000 euros. So it's always based on how many people are going to be part of that visa. The other thing about the medical insurance is important as well, that you do have to have specific that covers you enough for the requirements here. So it's not a case of just having the most basic policy. You don't have to have the most expensive either, but it's to make sure that you've got enough coverage to be able to go into hospital if there was an emergency, for example. These are things that if you are going into more detail, then we can give you exactly what the requirements are and what you need.
I mean, also anyone who holds a European health card that may have taken it prior to when you still could, and it's unexpired, that can still be used until it does expire.
Brilliant, thank you. That's really, really helpful. And it's worth reiterating that obviously everybody's circumstances are completely different. We appreciate that. So for any of those real specific questions that relate to your personal circumstances, we really strongly recommend you get in touch with the team. The details are all on screen, and they'll be able to help you with those sort of, detailed requirements that you have for your personal circumstances. So thank you for clarifying that. I wanted to move on and ask a few questions about working and things like that. We've had a couple of customers who've asked questions about working. So first of all, can somebody move to Spain on a non-lucrative visa that we've talked about, but then seek to get work when they've arrived in Spain?
No, basically the non-lucrative, the non-profit visa does not give you the ability to work. If you want to work in Spain, then you actually have to go for a specific work visa, work permit, which is a different process. And that actually does require you to, for example, already have a company that's offered you a position and documentation to support that for your visa. So it's a very, very different process, but it's not a case that you can, once you're here, you can start looking for work. It doesn't give you that permission.
Thank you for clarifying that. And another question on that topic is, obviously a lot of us are now very used to the working from home idea. I know a number of us are all sat in our own homes this morning. And if a customer wanted to continue working for their UK-based employer, but travel and live in Spain, do you know if that's possible, or if there are any sort of complications in that process that we should be aware of?
Estamos teniendo un montón de visas que se están tramitando por ese, en ese sentido.
You can do this. It is actually quite common. It's something that people are quite enjoying, taking advantage of the ability to do their normal work from the UK, but sitting in a nice sunny room with a glass of sangria at the end of it. There's no problem at all with doing that.
Where do I sign up? It sounds ideal. On the topic of that, we have a customer who's joined us today who wanted to understand if they would be able to relocate to Spain and then start a small business. Do you know if there are any regulations or rules against non-Spanish nationals setting up businesses or anything like that we need to be aware of?
Tenemos que analizar qué tipo de empresa, o sea, qué tipo de empresa es. Para ver que...
Basically, yes, absolutely, we can do that. Carla's just sort of talking about the more, it's about what sort of business that you want to set up, what activities you're going to be doing. All of those things are submitted when you set up a company, but there's no restriction on being a Spanish national in order to do that.
Brilliant. That's very helpful. Thank you. Now the working from home question, working remotely for a UK-based company has flagged up a lot of questions with our audience this morning, and people asking what the tax implications might be. And I suppose that actually really applies to the whole process. If somebody is formally relocating to Spain on some sort of long-term visa, they want to live there, do they become tax residents in Spain, and do they have to start paying Spanish taxes?
I believe that would only be on income earned in Spain. So any income earned elsewhere, even though they are residents in Spain, wouldn't necessarily be taxed or form part of any tax return. But we would have to, just to make sure, we haven't got any sort of tax lawyers with us in the meeting today, but we can certainly come back to you with a more concrete answer on that.
Thank you.
Just to add to that, again, just discussing this with Carla, it is very specific as to what you're doing, how the business is set up, how much time you're spending in one country or the other, where the project is. It's very specific to the person that's asking the question. So in a situation like that, we would prefer, rather than general information, to try and apply across the board, it would be a case-specific question.
Of course, thank you. Yeah, and absolutely, everyone's circumstances when it comes to finances and taxes and things like that are very unique. So we strongly recommend that you get in touch with the team. We've had an interesting question coming back to the finances that Christina, you were talking about in terms of the amount of money that customers might need in the bank. And I know, Emma, you clarified on that as well. A customer's asked if they, rather than having a sort of lump sum of money in the bank for their non-lucrative visa, if they were renting out their home in the UK and were getting a monthly income from that, would that count towards, having a suitable amount of money to secure that non-lucrative visa?
I mean, we have to study the situation, because normally they would like to know that they have the total amount in the bank account, because obviously you have income from the rent, but maybe not tomorrow. So they should confirm that you have the total amount in your account. Normally they accept the total amount in the account, also the pensions, but I'm not sure if they will accept the renting.
Carla's just adding a few points on that at the moment. You can any kind of income that you've got, as long as it's a proven regular income, can be used towards it. It's just a case of it being a proven regular income.
Brilliant. That's very helpful. Thank you. And I hope that answered the listener's question there. We've had an interesting point raised by a customer who was saying, they want to buy a holiday home in Spain, but they don't really want to be constrained by the 90 and 180-day rules, which obviously I think we all understand. Could they get a non-lucrative visa, they're retired, for Spain, but sort of come and go as they please? Or is there a minimum amount of time you'd be expected to spend in Spain if you had one of those non-lucrative visas?
With a non-lucrative visa, okay, sorry, Emma, go ahead.
I was just going to say exactly the same, I'm sure, as you were. 183 days is the requirement to be in Spain.
Is that under the non-lucrative visa?
Yes.
Yeah. And on the golden visa, presumably that is removed, right?
One day. It's
one
just
day.
1 day. Yeah. For
The golden visa is 1 day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Javier, that's an interesting point you raised there about the golden visa. Are you able to just give the customers a little bit more insight into what the golden visa opportunities are and what their minimum investment might need to be if they wanted to go down that route?
Indeed, I will defer to Emma, who's a lot more experienced on golden visas, along with Carla.
Okay, basically the golden visa it requires an investment of property of a minimum of 500,000 euros. That is without any encumbrance or mortgage. So anything above 500,000. Now that could be in 2 properties, for example. It doesn't have to be in 1. But if you have that investment, then you're able to do the golden visa, which gives you, allows you to work in Spain. It allows you to study in Spain and all your family. And the only requirement to be in Spain is 1 day.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Emma.
As you say, just to add as well, I mean, that this is for the whole family as well, that they bring across as part of that visa, with parents and children. And any of the older children that still rely on their parents for, students, etc.
Fantastic. Thank you, Emma and Carla. That's very helpful. We have a number of listeners joining us today who are married to somebody with an EU passport. They're not necessarily Spanish, but they have other EU passports. Are there any advantages being married to somebody with an EU passport? Can the visa application process be any easier or anything like that if your spouse has an EU passport?
I mean, from my own personal experience, there are EU regulations that say a spouse could acquire the same rights as the other spouse with a citizenship of the European Union. However, you would have to reside in one of those countries. So if you don't reside in an EU country, I think it's quite limited.
Carla's just saying the same thing. Yeah, there is another process. You know, if you were going to be living in Spain, by which you can apply to be attached as a partner of someone that is in the EU. So there is a separate process that you can go by if you are actually planning to live in Spain.
Yeah.
Great, thank you very much. That's really helpful. Back to the golden visa, somebody's actually asked a question about healthcare with the golden visa. Obviously, we understand that in time you can get access to the Spanish healthcare system on some of the other non-lucrative visas, but on a golden visa, do you have access to it? Do you know, Emma or Carla?
It's the same requirements for the non-lucrative as it is for the golden visa. You'd still need to have medical cover and such. It would be a different case if somebody was then working in Spain on the golden visa, where they were contributing to the Spanish system and then ended up with healthcare that way. But it doesn't give you an entitlement to the system here automatically.
That's great. Thank you very much for that. I think we have covered off most of the customers' questions today. A few more actually just coming in now about the golden visa. People are now saying for the 500,000 euros with the golden visa, does it have to be on one property? Can they purchase multiple properties if the total value gets to 500,000 euros? Questions like that coming in. Also, quite a lot of people asking about how long would the golden visa last for? Just to put those questions to you, if you're able to give us answers on those.
Yeah, absolutely. You can invest in several properties. That's not a problem, as long as it covers the minimum requirement. With renewal, let me just double check, because I've written it down here and I don't want to give you the incorrect information. And basically what we have is, first of all, you have to renew for the first year you have to renew, and then it's 2 years, and then it's 5 years.
Brilliant. That's really helpful. Thank you so much. I think that's answered a lot of people's questions there. So thank you for clarifying on that. Another couple of questions have just come in with regards to pensions. Can you still access your UK pension if you've relocated to Spain? I know you were saying about sort of not having some of your tax specialists with us today, but I wondered if that was something that any of you would be able to answer.
Whether the UK government will still pay you your pension if you're living abroad, essentially?
Yes, essentially that's the question, yeah.
I suppose that's more of a UK side question, but I believe so, knowing a lot of expats in Spain who do get their pensions. Now, the taxable status of that, of course, will be taxed in the UK. Whether you will also have to declare in Spain, as you are, is income earned in the UK, however, brought over to Spain, that we would have to look at.
Basically, just adding on that is correct. If somebody is resident here in Spain and they do an annual tax return here, then although you will have been taxed on your pension in the UK, you could be additionally taxed here. It depends on what your income actually is, but it's not double. It's not a double imposition, but there can be taxes to pay on top. They can.
That's very useful. Thank you. Certainly something for the customers to listen out for. Question has come in about driving licenses and bank accounts. If a customer takes one of the non-lucrative visas and relocates to Spain, can they start a Spanish bank account, and can they get a Spanish driving license?
Yes, you can open a bank account. You don't need to be resident in Spain. You can, as a non-resident, you can have a bank account in Spain, and as a resident, you can have a bank account in Spain. That's not a problem at all. The issue of the driving license, at the moment, the British driving license is recognised. Effectively, from Brexit, there isn't actually an agreement in place as yet to cover this point. So it's being negotiated at the moment. So we're expecting it to be early next year, and that they will just keep extending the period that we've got at the moment for you to carry on driving. But as I think Christina knows a little bit more about what they're talking about with regards to this. But it's once the new agreement comes in, then we'll know what the conditions will be for driving. But we don't imagine it's going to be too different to as it is now. It's very important to remember that the relationship between the UK and Spain has always been incredibly strong. There's a lot of British people here, there's a lot of Spanish people in the UK, and as such, what hasn't been covered already by Brexit will be done shortly, we expect.
Brilliant. That's very helpful. Thank you so much, Emma. I'm circling back around again to 90 and 180 days, because a couple more questions have come in from holiday makers and those looking to buy a holiday home. Somebody has asked that they themselves are a British passport holder, but their partner has an EU passport, that their spouse. Are there any advantages for that person? Because their spouse is able to stay in Spain longer than 90 and 180, would they be able to do that by the virtue of the fact they're married to an EU passport holder? Would any of you be able to clarify on that?
We mentioned before about the other option of residency that somebody can have. With residency, yes, but just for traveling, no, you'd have to have that, you'd have to be attached as a European resident to your partner in order for that to be applicable.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you. I hope that's answered the question. Perhaps not quite the answer you were looking for, but I hope that that has at least answered that question. I think we have covered pretty much everything that has been asked this morning. There have been a lot of questions, and a lot of customers have had specific queries. There's actually one more that we should cover here that's just come in from Jackie. That was just asking about NIE numbers. What is the process for obtaining an NIE number? And would anybody just be able to clarify on that one before we sign off today?
You have two options. It can either be managed directly here in Spain. That can be done either in person or by sufficient power of attorney, or you can apply through the Spanish consulate in the UK.
Brilliant, thank you. And Jackie, I hope that answered your question that you asked there. As I say, I think we've covered off most of the main issues today and the sort of more broad and general issues for everybody listening. I know a number of you do have very sort of specific and detailed questions relating to your personal circumstances. There's over 250 of you have joined us this morning, so unfortunately we're not going to be able to get through all of those. But the details for the team are on screen now, so we really do recommend that you get in touch with them all directly, and they will be able to help with your personal circumstances on your queries. Main things just that I wanted to say is thank you to you all for listening, whether you're listening in with us live this morning. Thank you for getting up on a Saturday morning to join us, and a huge thank you to the JLCA team today for giving us your time and your expertise. It's been a fantastic session. We'll be in touch next week to share a replay of today's session if you wanted to watch back and refresh your memory on anything or pass it on to any family or friends. We've also got a session in a couple of weeks' time that focuses more broadly on the buying process for Spain. There were a couple of questions that came in today about, the cost of taxes and the legal process for actually purchasing a property. So that session will be really helpful for you. So I'll pop a link to that up on screen now if you do want to join us at that session. So really all that's left to say is thank you again for joining us this morning, to the JLCA team and to all of you listening at home. And we wish you a really successful and happy move to the gorgeous sunny Spain. Thanks everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.